as the political arena heats up for the November midterms. Perhaps one of the nation's hottest battles will be in Arizona District 2. You have deep state players on both sides of the aisle aggressively trying to shape the events. Why? I'm going to tell you. Looking at the graphics above, you can see Arizona is a peach ripe for the picking. Deep state money is aggressively posturing to grab control of mining rights. Obama judges in place. We're watching the real-time ravaging of the Navajo people. They have been irradiated for decades, causing mind-bending amounts of suffering and deprivation of even the most basic needs of life. And now the table is being set to rob and pillage those people to the very end. The numbers above are just what they want us to know about. There is a vast wealth of precious metals, uranium in particular, and rare forms of sand and quartz needed for computer chips. Lots of battery materials as well. The plan? Simple. It's what they always do. Buy off the local officials who sign away the rights of the land, stack the courts, get their political apparatus in line to do everything with taxpayer dollars, and rape the land and those living on it. If you'll stay with me on this, I'm going to show you exactly how they're doing it. But some history first. This video was created as a companion to go with the document I put in the links below this video. The document has been published through a couple of different sites, and I put the link to the open document on Google Docs so everybody can look at this for themselves. They can click the links, follow these leads themselves. But in writing this, one of the first things I want you to look at is just a history of the overall Navajo Nation and uranium mining. It all starts in World War II and the advent of the atomic bomb, and it goes fast forwards to there to they haven't even treated them like American citizens. We're going to be looking at a lot of material that might indicate that their land was deliberately poisoned to devalue it, to seal it, and to keep people out until the time is right. Well, I'm here to tell you the time is right, and they're making moves on that land right now. And the fact of the matter is, if the Navajo people were to receive their just dues, their just deserts from this operation, this mining, they would become a world power equal to the Saudi princes. But there's a lot of people in Arizona that mean damn well this won't happen. They plan to steal it for themselves. And in this video and in the document, I'm going to show you how and why. I'm going to show you a lot of news articles in this video that I encourage you to go to the document below and look the news articles up and read them for yourself and familiarize yourself with this subject, and tell every living person that you can possibly get to listen to you. On the screen is an excerpt from an article that gives the history of the Navajo people and uranium mining. What I want to call your attention to is this particular script. On July 16, 1979, the U.S. saw the largest catastrophic spill in history of uranium sludge, when over 1,100 tons of uranium waste and 94 million gallons of radioactive solution from the UNC Tailings Disposable Pond as its mill in Church Rock breached a dam and flooded the Rio Puerco. In 2005, uranium mining was given a moratorium by the Navajo Nation Council. And therein is the whole secret to everything we're about to discuss. They want those uranium mines back, and they damn well mean to have them. They're playing nice right now and trying to bribe the Navajo people. Well, they are bribing the Navajo people, their leaders. But in the end, you can bet there's not strings attached to these deals, but chains. Chains of enslavement and chains of theft, chains of abuse, and just pillaging the land. And I'm going to show you more. In response to toxic spills like the one I just discussed of the uranium mines, which has happened all over the United States, a super fund was created by the EPA, being fueled and funded by regular EPA budget and the confiscation of fines and costs where there have been major environmental violations. It's also a damn handy way to move around large quantities of cash, tax-free, I won't say untraceable, but unquestioned. And that's exactly what's happening right now with the EPA Superfund. But the Superfund and some of the documents that I'm showing you above, and again, go to the links and check it out. It's a huge thing that has been funneled and focused laser beam like at the Arizona desert. And I'm going to show you why. The slush fund, or the super fund I should say, is in fact a bottomless slush fund controlled by the EPA. It's used to grease palms and make media to gain votes. In reality, it ain't much count for nothing else. So now, Biden appointed Michael Reagan comes to the directorship of the EPA. No, they're not planning on stealing the super fund, although I'm sure they thought about it. They're going to use the super fund to steal even more. They're going to strip Arizona and its reservations, which are like little countries within our country, of all their resources. And they're going to have us, the taxpayers, pay for it all. It's the same old hustle they've been doing for centuries. They're going to give them beads for treasures beyond the commoner's wildest dreams. They have a plan, you see, and I'm trying to show it to you. Their end game is straight out of a high-end Hollywood Bond movie. A new nuclear age of clean energy and super quantum computers buried in the desert that will monopolize energy in a way never ever seen before. And more control over huge plots of land. Sounds far-fetched and futuristic, doesn't it? But please stay with me. Above on screen, I'm showing you. This is the big green plan looking at you. There's Michael Reagan and the chief of Gila River Indian Reservation, Joseph Rowe Lewis, and Tom O'Halloran. We will be looking at all these deep state players in the rest of this video and show you how they come together. The picture above is saying to you this is the plan. Filled with language like racial equity, environmental justice, racial environmental equity, the scene is already heavily insulated by highly charged woke media slogans and jargons. These are firewalls to hide the real deal. Those of you versed in the doublespeak of the deep state and their love of boasting about what they're doing and going to do can easily find this pattern. Stay with me, it gets good. Let me show you another occasion where they used the same plan. We're going to come back to all these people because all this ties together. But first, I want to give you some more history. I want to tell you about Treasure Island and Hunters Point, San Francisco, California. There are literally volumes of information about this tragedy. Look it up, get mad, and get real mad. Above on the screen are just a few things, a few excerpts that I pulled out of the news to give you some idea about who the players in this tragedy are. Pelosi, Feinstein, Feinstein, Diane, the criminal families of the West Coast. Let me break it down to you like this. World War II produced naval shipyards in San Francisco Bay. They were isolated and island-like. The war ended, but its effects did not. The two shipyards were left irradiated and poisoned like a science fiction movie. The EPA and the Navy got involved in the cleanup of this toxic hellhole, which also happens to be billion-dollar real estate. In the end, two supervisors for Tetra Tech, I want you to remember that name, got themselves a 4-month prison sentence. It was a slap on the wrist compared to the death and suffering they caused by falsifying the cleanup data. In comes the crime families, Pelosi and Feinstein, and boom, these toxic hellholes are cleaned up and ready for billion-dollar developments, which their families, their nephews and husbands cleaned up on. And people got sick and started dying of radiation exposure. Little children sick, suffering because of radiation exposure. And the cover-up rolls on. There's a ton of articles on this that I've got links to in the document below, and I've put a few of them on the screen. If you want to read a horror show in real-time happening, just read about Treasure Island and Hunter's Point. I keep telling you I'm going to prove every bit of this. So now, I want you to take a 30,000-foot look at Arizona. When I found this story, I was working with an amazing group of patriots, the CMZ, Code Monkey Z Army, over on True Social. There, I met a phenomenal individual and patriot by the name of Martha. Martha was born and raised in the desert in a mining family next to Area 51. No kidding. This woman is a national treasure. With all the gemstones in Arizona, Martha shines and glitters with a wealth of knowledge. A lot of strange stuff been going on in the desert for decades, and Martha has been there to see it all. She opened my eyes to this story, and I'm humbled by the privilege of telling it. Anyhow, looking from high above, we see Gila River Indian Reservation governed by Stephen Roe Lewis. Above is a picture from their organization that shows how a bought and paid for politician, yes, Indians have them too, flags for the deep state. He publicly declares his devotion for the cause. Here you can see him at this 30,000-foot view. You can obviously see Tom O'Halloran, the Democrat congressman in place in District 2 and in direct relationship with Stephen Roe Lewis and the Gila River Reservation, as I'm going to show you numerous pictures of the two together as they parade themselves around for their deep state masters to show that they're getting the job done. When you look at Tom, or in my ranks as we call him, Tom O, everybody gets a nickname. We were looking up Tom O's butt with a telescope, and the first thoughts that formed in my mind looking at Tom was, he's anybody's old dog that'll scratch him. Truly, if there were ever a picture of a deep state lapdog, our boy Tom O is that cat. He's been Republican, an independent, and a Democrat. But more interestingly is this. Tom started his career as a beat cop in Chicago. Think about Chicago for a minute and all you know about that crime hub. And then look at the picture below. I don't know this is speculation, but he looks like a poor beat cop. That's his little ride behind him and his kids' toys on the front of his little house. And we can safely say that as a Chicago police officer, he was not setting the world on fire. Well, as a police officer serving from 1966 to 1975, Tom managed to acquire 1 year of college. You can find all this information in his wiki links, and I posted some of that too. But he's a beat cop for Chicago, 75. He's got a year of college, and then he becomes a member of the Chicago Board of Trade, operating his own futures trading business with a focus in futures contracting on 10-year U.S. Treasury notes. What? How the hell does that happen? A follower of mine online said he arrested the right person. I responded, or he didn't arrest the right person. This is purely speculation, sue me if you want, but to jump from a cop to a futures trader had to be a lot more than a random DUI stop. Moves like this sometimes involve murder. Shit, let's be serious. Considering the subjects of the individuals that we're looking at, can we say that oftentimes these sort of things involve murder? Murder is the fastest way up their satanic pyramid. But I digress. Really enough said about Tom Ofer right now anyway. However, there's a little more that I want you to see. I want to color you a bright picture of Tom. Looking at Tom's wiki on the screen and following his career of being Republican, Independent, and Democrat, considering he comes out of a financial institute in Chicago where he arrived after 1 year of college as a former police officer, you gotta wonder this. Now, this is what I know, but you can speculate if you want. Do you think Tom O left the Republican Party because he was on that 16-year plan with Obama and with Hillary? Was he sure that she would win and that they would, while tearing up the rest of the world, rape the desert some more together? I can't prove any of this, but I can say this. They've been making moves and plotting on Arizona for a long time. Every square inch of it has been documented with taxpayer dollars for miles below the surface. They know exactly what's there, and they're posturing heavily to get in position to steal it. Recently on the national scene and in the scene in Arizona, a new player came to town. His name is Michael Reagan, or as we call him, Mikey Reagan. He's shown in some of the pictures I've shown you and in one above. He's newly Biden appointed EPA director. Remember how I told you that the deep state is obsessed with their symbols, their broadcasting, their telegraphing of what they're going to do before they do it? Let's look at some more social media. Let's take a look at Michael Reagan's wiki. I would like to read to you his political career. On December 17, 2020, members of the Biden presidential transition team told the press Reagan would be nominated to serve as the next United States Environmental Protection Agency administrator. They've been planning this a while. Reagan is the first black man to run the agency and is responsible for helping to advance the Biden administration commitment to combating climate change, promoting green energy innovations, and addressing the effects of environmental racism. Reagan's nomination was endorsed by the EPA, or Environmental Protection Network, an organization composed of former EPA appointees and career staff, which was created to oppose the Trump administration's effort to roll back environmental regulations. On February the 9th, 2021, members of the United States Senate Committee on Environmental and Public Works, EPW, committee voted 14-6 to send Reagan's nomination as EPA administrator for a full Senate vote. The full Senate, all of them, every last one of them, confirmed his nomination 66-34 on March 10, 2021. Many Republicans signed, and he was sworn in on March 11, 2021. An obvious deep state plan. Empowered by his blackness in the Obama world, and now the Biden world, he's insulated by media hype terms like environmental racism and environmental racial equity. This guy's bulletproof. He's the new green superhero, and you better love him or you're a racist. Oh yeah, and he controls unlimited power over the slush funds that Pelosi and her crew so proficiently manipulated in the San Fran shithole harbor to clearing millions and millions of dollars. Michael Reagan is another poster child for the deep state. Look at his career. Above are more pictures of Tomo flagging to his masters of the deep state that he's getting the job done, that he's buying off those tribal leaders. Yes, it's literally this easy to read these people when you know the playbook. These posts are from Tom's interns. I put all those in the document, but there's some interesting points on Tom's interns that I want you to see. Above on the screen is Caitlin Tran. She is a she and a her, and she's a student at UNC Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I want you to pay attention to her, and her being from North Carolina, because guess who else is from North Carolina? That's right, Michael Reagan. Now, it's a bit of a stretch, but can we say back channel? Can we say that while all this was being planned and going down, that Michael Reagan was transitioning from North Carolina EPA to federal national EPA, that a member of a college in North Carolina was appointed as an intern to Tom O'Halloran, who has been working and was glad to get Michael Reagan in place to get all this EPA money released? It makes a circle. I'm not saying it's right or wrong because I haven't had time to deep dive this chick, but I already know when I do, I'm going to find even more and more connections. I am inviting and begging anyone under the sound of my voice to dig into this stuff and find her too. Okay, now I want you to recall the term nuclear renaissance, a new nuclear age, because in spite of all those horrible environmental disasters that have changed the world, nuclear energy is clean. It's a green energy. I didn't know. Did you know? Now we all know. Above on the screen are a few articles where they're stating as much. And I want you to hold this thought as we're flashing through this information. That now we're trying to seek $4.3 billion for uranium to wean off of Russian supply. Man, we're going to put more money into to buying uranium. And uranium prices surge. Now, in discussing the new nuclear age of mining, I want to say this before I go any farther. I smell Clinton's stench. With all this big money, corruption, obvious deep state players, and uranium, this must, and I emphasize must, tie to Uranium One and the Clintons. I just haven't dug that deep. This video is to sound the alarm and hopefully encourage somebody else to start digging on this, because this is a gold mine, literally and figuratively. Also from the social media, you can see Tom Moe working his way into secondary industries of mining, the gravel, and they're getting everything ready. We found a bunch more information on his push to get broadband, and sure as shit, we found a bunch of information about mining operations being conducted solely through the Internet of Things, robotics, and things like this, to mine horrible things like uranium. But I want you to go on and think about this. Looking from an elevation this high, 30,000 feet, you can see that they've been working on this for a long time. Every square inch of wealth of Arizona and the reservations has been cataloged, measured, quantified, and documented for miles under the surface. It sits near Yellowstone. Arizona is a caldera mineral deposit from a mega volcano. Martha taught me that. Think on that for a second. Now speculate with me. Could the poisoning through radiation of the entire Colorado River Valley have been a long-game deliberate act? A way to clear the indigenous people from the land, to isolate and deem worthless the land, to shut down and seal the land? Well, I'll tell you, forever as the deep state has existed, its corporations and governments have gone in and stripped the wealth of more countries than I care to count. Isn't that how we formed this thing? Not quite. Leaving behind pain, suffering, death, corruption, and war. Same old game. Give the savages beads for treasure. Beads for land. In this case, they're going to be giving them some Cadillacs and stuff for a desert. I don't even know how to equate the wealth. More than we can even imagine. Mountains of diamonds comes to mind. So with all this said, is it possible that they shut that desert down and closed it off by deliberately poisoning the land? I want you to see more of these articles. The one on the screen is a report from a mine incident with the EPA from 2015 regarding such. And I want to call your attention to reading a short passage from it. The person who wrote this said, reading between the lines, I believe that has been EPA's plan all along. The proposed Red and Bonita plugging plan, which is a water hydraulic mining trick, the Red and Bonita plugging plan had been their way of getting a foot in the door to justify their hidden agenda for construction of a treatment plant. After all, with a budget of $8.2 billion and 17,000 employees, the EPA needs new big projects to feed the beast and justify their existence. And more. They're setting up these projects, these waste treatment plants and everything, because they're fixing to build humongous towns and operations in the desert. Along with these mining issues, there are now major water issues in the area as well. The wonderful Martha also explained that the whole drought is a dog and pony show to devaluate the land, and as we know now, to starve us out. We are being starved. She goes on to state there are vast reservoirs underground below the contamination zone. They're setting on this to use once they actually set up shop on the ground. I don't doubt her at all. Knowing all I know about the deep state, this is right on schedule. Why would they give away something that they can sell and profit from? Remember what they did to Tesla over free energy. Well, don't take mine and Martha's word, but look for yourself. Look at some of these articles. Look in the news. Look about the Colorado River drought. So far, I feel like I'm making a pretty good sense, but there's so much more. Remember, I told you how they like to brag about stuff and show you what they're doing in wide open in your face. In 2019, the EPA announced that it would put $220 million out for bid to begin cleanup of the abandoned uranium mines in Navajo County. Jim Dandy to the rescue. And then you see Tom's responses on the screen. And they awarded those contracts to small businesses, easy to overwhelm with money, two of which are minority owned. Let's take a moment and first focus on the money the EPA is pouring in. Right there's $220 million to clean up the uranium mines. Well, gosh darn it, since I started investigating this, I saw where old Tom O and Chief Rowe were at it again on Gila River Reservation, and they got $210 million appropriated for water projects to give them clean water. Looking at the article I posted above and excerpts from it, you can see that there's a Navajo Nation EPA, which is run by a dear sweet lady, which I'm sure thinks she's doing the right thing and that these are wonderful people. And this article is all about how much she supports them and works well with them and loves and worships them. And she's part of the problem, not part of the solution. Key leaders in the Indian reservation have already been bought off, and it's as obvious as the nose on your face. But looking at the above article, it goes on to show how they're seeking scientists, young scientists and young enthusiastic people to keep up our energy. They are seeking out and buying the best and brightest of the Navajo. But those are not strings attached to the deal, but as I said before, chains. Going into business with government is like giving permission to a demon or a vampire to come into your home. It's there to kill you, and it takes a miracle to get it out of your house. Most of these Navajo people that they are pursuing have been given full scholarships, as was Stephen Rowe Lewis. He's a Harvard boy. He is straight up, you have to study his wiki to really even get a grasp on who he is and what he's doing. And that's who they're recruiting. They're recruiting young Navajo Nation people that have been to their indoctrination schools of the deep state and now are aligning them so as that they can control the councils of the Navajo to give up those uranium contracts. Tell me I'm wrong. Before we move forward, I want you to reflect back on the lessons of Treasure Island, the corruption, the leftist deep state players, the killing of the people and of the commoner, the poisoning of the land, and all the other things. This is what we learned at Treasure Island. You can't clean up a heavily radiated site. The best you can do is contain and store the whole Colorado River Valley. I doubt that. In doing so, if you try to scoop it up and contain it, all you do is spread the radiation virtually everywhere it goes. You could close off the land and relocate, which is the logical solution, or in the deep state's case, they'll do what they've always done. They'll lie. I told you I was going to prove this. Let me show you how. Look at the article above. Remember I told you to remember Tetra Tech? Can you believe this? Can you believe this? There's more. It gets better. I'm going to show you another connection to Treasure Island. But there it is, folks. The fix is in, and we know the playbook. The powers that be do not give a popcorn fart about the Navajo. What they care about is gaining digging rights on their land. Let's be clear. They have to whitewash this. Yes, members of the Navajo Nation will undoubtedly secure jobs and positions that will pour money into their local economies. It will look great on social media. Look at the tricked out RV, the Navajo Nation, and Big Chief Stephen Lewis. He probably keeps it at his house, but look at that graphics detail job. How does that RV help the little children dying of radiation sickness? Wouldn't that RV money buy the child a better home and a better place? I'm just saying. Okay, so we got a crooked contractor on site that knows how to assess the situation. Let's take a peek at the other contractors who've been confirmed as rewarded pieces of this $220 million operation. One ties back to Hunters Point and Treasure Island itself directly. Now, government contracts work like this. They are political and or criminal connected and affiliated. The deep state buys entire voting blocks and the return campaign contributions with government contracts, especially in dim-lit areas of the government. If you were to question their actions, you're a racist. Sometimes these contracts establish a conduit of money, services, and goods right back to the politicians who got the contracts released. You know this is right? TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, Watts Bar Nuclear Plant, had houses painted, gas tanks filled, yards mowed, decks built, barns built, $100,000 pieces of equipment bought and used one time to be disappeared. The list goes on and on and on. This is a form of graft and seldom documented. These contracts have the power to make any organization, and before the contracts even dry in Arizona, Tom O is already pitching for more money, which, by God, if you don't agree with, you're a racist. Look at this statement above. It says, however, O'Halloran said with inflation, the funds may not be quite enough to remediate as many as hoped for the 200 uranium mines. These are open-ended tickets, folks. There's no end to their expenditures. There were 3 contractors chosen, 2 of which were minority. Boy, this is where it really gets shady. Here, for the purposes of this article, I want to focus on the 2 minority contractors. The third contractor is a large contractor that looks semi-legit and probably the one they will use to be a face for the project to make themselves look legit. But I want to focus on the minority contractors, and this is why. Minority-owned business have guarantees in government contracting. They can't lose, especially if the fix is in. And oh baby, it's in. It's a bottomless pit of poorly regulated spending which evaporates into the air when it hits the contractor. It's better than hitting the Powerball. A project like this has unlimited potential. Fortunes are being made. Sadly, none of this yet is particularly illegal. The devil is in the details. In the document below, I take you on a little sidebar about some government corruption that I knew about personally. Not saying I committed it, but I'm saying that the guy next to me most likely did. But for brevity's sake, I want you to look at this first contractor in Arizona, Arrowhead Contracting. Arrowhead is totally and completely owned by Native Americans and is based out of Kansas. Looking at their website, it's not particularly grand or anything, and it's, pretty generic. Well, when I started to run them down and make the phone calls and send out emails to the people that I found associated with Arrowhead, I didn't really get a lot of response. But finally, just calling in through their open line, I did talk to a receptionist who gave me the number for their Arizona operation. It is 480-471-8399. The young lady on the other end answered Arrowhead, but she did seem a little disoriented and put off by my statement of being an independent journalist. I should have said I was an Orkin man or something. She got all the information on my contacts, and she got them in detail and spelled it back to me. She made sure and wrote that shit down, believe that. But she didn't give me any information to speak of, and I haven't heard anything back from anyone whatsoever that I've contacted. And ever since making that phone call, I've been looking over my shoulder just a little bit. So I kept doing some digging on that number. Above is the address that number comes back to. The sources I use are pretty good. It's a background program that I pay for, and it's highly accurate. It pulls up things on me that I don't even want to see. But nevertheless, in the picture above, there you have it. 4413 North Camino, Alameda, Phoenix, Arizona, 85018. It's a residence. And boy, that's a nice residence too. Is there anything about this place that makes you think I might be correct in saying tons of graft is lost in the services, office space, and other essential expenditures? Trust me, everybody got new trucks, devices, the works. They have an open-ended ticket under federal law, and if you don't like it, you're a racist. Looking at Arrowhead's main website and looking at their building and their equipment, I don't even see $1 million sitting on the ground. Looking at this house, I see, multiple $1 million sitting on the ground, and it doesn't have anything to do that I can tell with uranium mining. But let me backtrack a moment to Big Chief Gila River, I Hate Trump, Stephen Roe Lewis. He sure didn't give up his slave name, did he? This guy ties into, boom, the gaming industry and sits on the gaming commission. His background ties him to numerous properties on the west and east coast, including D.C. He is in every way associated with deep left political movement. He's associated with the Gaming Commission. We have a 100% Native American owned contractor on site working on a Native American land that consists of poison uranium mines. Looks pretty good in social media, looks real good in the news, and it's an open-ended ticket for corruption. So anyway, our second contractor is far more mysterious and cagey than Arrowhead. Arrowhead was easy to run down, and I want to say, if anyone has a chance to deep dive them, we're looking at the owners of Arrowhead, and we're trying to find people also sitting on gaming commissions and casino associations, because what a wonderful way to launder big-time government money. I can't imagine that I'd be wrong about that. I just about have to say I'd bet the farm. But moving on, let's look at this second one. Initially, all I found was a internet paper company. No pictures, just some paper. I haven't talked to anyone. I found endless voicemails, running around bullshit. All very well done and quite professional on some ends. Generic and obviously veiled on others, but nevertheless a stone wall at every turn. On the screen is a restoration paper, a DUNS paper, for Red Rock Remediation. The JV stands for Joint Venture. Red Rock Remediation out of San Francisco is a generic, no real internet presence company with zero potential of cleaning up a contaminated uranium mine. But they are a minority Asian woman-owned company, which is solid gold in government contracting. Let me show you more about Red Rock before we move on to other parts of this joint venture, which is ERRG, straight from the internet, or the pages I'm showing you now. The phone number on screen, 9258392212. I call that phone number and it goes to an Asian woman who's listed as the owner, Cynthia Lou's generic voicemail. She was hard to dig up. The phone number gave up this information. It's registered to ERRG of Briones. ERRG is the other company, maybe the parent company, maybe a subsidiary of Red Rock. Red Rock's maybe a subsidiary. Like I said, I just found all this. I haven't had time to track down every last crumb. But Cynthia Lou and ERG are tied together, and she's the owner of both companies. However that works out. But for the record, it was Red Rock Remediation that was awarded the contract for a piece of the action of the $220 million the EPA is dumping into the uranium set of the Arizona Indian reservations. Looking at some of the paperwork I have, Red Rock is just, on paper even, is just a generic construction company. Pretty much like some that I've owned and operated myself. Nothing big in particular stands out. Cynthia Lou, though, she ties to a host of addresses all over California and nowhere else, oddly enough. She ties to a few pages of phone numbers, And we got some addresses associated with her. All this is in the document. I definitely want and am asking other people to deep dive it. Now, when you go to the parent company, www.errg.com, it has a good looking website, and so far no one or no thing I've tried to contact with or to has responded back to me. Going forward, you're going to see on the screen a picture of what appears to be Cynthia Lou, but we don't know. She's a very mysterious lady. But again, I haven't had a chance to deep dive all this. But then we have a post from another article that lights it up, that clearly states ERRG has a straight tie to Hunters Point, Treasure Island, and another nuclear fiasco that resulted in people dying and getting sick and suffering. Now, look at this. You got a testing facility that's been cut in, an environmental testing contractor that's been caught in government scams. 2 of their supervisors were thrown under the bus and given 4 months. You know they didn't operate by themselves or alone. They took the bullet. You have them, Tetra Tech, and now you have ERRG was tied to the same leftist real estate money hustle in Treasure Island and Hunters Point. And now you got these people on ground in Arizona at the Gila River Indian Reservation working on another radiated site. A blind man can see this one coming. I know I've been rambling on for 45 minutes now, but there is so much more you got to see to this. Guess who else is in Phoenix? Just got in town in 2019. This just gets crazier. Hunter Biden and the CCP showed up in Phoenix, Arizona in 2019 in the form of CMOC, which is a Chinese-owned mining operation specializing in moly concentrates. Moly concentrates are a side product of copper mining. As technology is progressing, our appetite for the basic building blocks has changed. When CMOC showed up in town, you can bet they have big plans. They're not a very nice company. They have strong ties to the CCP, and they don't care about the land and people. What will they do to Arizona? Look at these news clippings of how basically they have invaded and declared war upon the people of Congo and are busy right now stripping that country of its valuable resources, paying them pennies on the dollar by set scales and various other means of known Chinese cheating. Why? Here's another article that shows you why. That China is trying to corner the world's market on molybdenum, or however you say it, moly. And it gets better. Look to the screen where you see Hunter Biden coming into the scene in the Congo, doing some inside backroom dirty deals, probably involving prostitutes and crack cocaine, and getting it set wide open for the Chinese government-run mining operation to get in the door and start stripping the country of its wealth. As I wrap up this first installment, I want to conclude with showing you the first instances of the global plot overrunning the Native Americans. On the screen is a headline from the travel request to Hot Arizona Copper Mine. Work is denied. Remember I told you moly is a byproduct of copper mining. And copper is just a small subject, baby. You got gold. You got uranium. You got types of quartz that's so pure that it's the only substance on the planet that they can use in the chips for the supercomputers and the quantum computers. that they want to build underground in the desert and tap all that water to supply it and operate it. And all the broadband systems they're setting up will be for automation and service of the mining industry. They've been at this for years, but I'm just rambling on. Looking at the copper mine and the decision against the Native Americans who owned the land that the copper mines own, who do you think the judge was appointed by that said over this case? You already know it. Barry Barack Hussein Obama Serrato. Big Mike Robinson's husband. Everybody knows Michelle was born Michael LeBon Robinson, right? Well, the fix is in. These court-appointed judges in Arizona, where you can look at the judges that Obama appointed, and you can bet they were put in that spot for a reason, because they left so many seats open. They were so busy stacking the deck to come out here and rob these Indians that they didn't have time to fill all the seats that the Trump filled. But you can bet the deck is stacked in Arizona. And let me give you one more point I want to bring up before I shut this thing down. And I hope I got you curious, and I hope that you're looking at what's going on. The EPA has a wonderful tool called Secret Science. Look up EPA and Secret Science. Above are some links and sections of articles where the EPA is allowed to use science that is not documented or published. They use security and national security and a lot of other smoke screens to basically just say they do what they want. But they're not even bound to produce the science. They just call it what they want to. I said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. The fix is in. Secret science, dirty contractors. Who will save the Navajo people? This is just the tip of the iceberg. The next part of this article and series will be done to take a hard look at the right-wing deep state operatives, which I call the 3 C's: Clinton's, Mark Cuban, and Eli Crane. The deep state's pouring money into both sides of this, and there's a contingent plan. In the article, I've left you some really nice digging tools and things to work with. I hope you look them up and find them. They're a lot of fun. This was not done as a political endorsement, but it is done in the fashion that the only chance the Navajo people have, the only option on the ground for any sort of fair outcome to this ongoing con job and bribery that they're committing against the Navajo leaders is Ron Watkins. Ron Watkins is the only player on the field that's not tied to the rest of these clowns. He's the only player on the field that's not tied into deep state money or traditional government. He's grassroots. He's organic, and he is the very, very reason that I've started doing this research. But in fact, this story has written itself, and I don't have to endorse Ron, because if you will follow me and look at the subjects that I'm putting before you, you will come to a logical conclusion that there is no other person that could be put out there in that position that would protect the Navajo people, the Apaches, and all the other native Arizonans out there who are the rightful owners of this mountain of wealth. Ron Watkins can be the person that makes sure that these people don't get robbed like so many third world countries have in the history of the world. I hope you got something from this. I hope that you took enough initiative to look at the document I posted with it, and that you'll start looking at these links, and that you will track this down and read it for yourself, and that you'll dig and you'll submit information, and you'll write your own articles, make your own videos, and let's shine some light on this, because that is the only way that we have to fight against the darkness. Hope you enjoyed it. Love you. God bless you. Peace out.